He flashing red and blue lights bounced off my lock gate like some twisted disco ball at 3 o'clock in the afternoon too. Officers stood there looking confused as they stared at the private property signs I'd posted every 10 feet along the fence line behind them. Karen Mitchell stood with her arms crossed, that smug look on her face like she just won the lottery. Little did she know months later she'd be standing in a courtroom watching a judge bang his gavel and award me $2.5 million. Let me back up a bit. My name is Jake Thompson and I've owned the Double Oak Ranch for 15 years. It's 120 acres of Texas Hill country that my grandfather left me, complete with a spring-fed pool he built back in 1962. When I inherited the place, it was just me, my horses, and miles of empty land in every direction. Life was good. Then came Willowbrook Estates. Some developer bought up the land next to mine and threw up a gated community faster than you could say. Property values suddenly. My quiet ranch was bordered by 300 cookie-cutter houses and an HOA run by Karen Mitchell, a woman who treated her position like she was running a small dictatorship. The trouble started 3 months after the last house sold. I was out feeding the horses when a silver Lexus pulled up to my gate. Out stepped Karen, all 5'2" of bottle blonde fury, clutching a manila folder like it contained nuclear launch codes. "Mr. Thompson," she said in that fake sweet voice that made my teeth hurt, "we need to discuss your pool." I leaned against the fence post and waited. "The Willowbrook HOA has determined that your pool, being adjacent to our community, should be available for resident use during designated hours." I actually laughed. "That pool sits on my private property, ma'am. It's been here since before you were born." Her face went red. "The proximity to our community makes it a shared amenity. We're prepared to contribute to maintenance costs." I shook my head, not interested. "Have a nice day." That should have been the end of it, but Karen Mitchell didn't become HOA president by taking no for an answer. The next week I found families trying to squeeze through gaps in my fence. The week after that, someone had put up laminated signs reading "Community Pool Hours 9 a.m. to 7 p.m." on posts near my property line. I took them down and installed security cameras. That's when things got interesting. The footage showed Karen herself leading groups to a section of fence she'd had someone cut. They'd splash around in my pool while I was out working the ranch, leaving trash and breaking pool equipment. I tried being reasonable. I sent certified letters. I attended an HOA meeting where Karen actually told residents that I was hoarding community resources. When I pointed out that the pool was built before their houses existed, she said with a straight face, "Historical precedent doesn't override community needs." The final straw came on a Saturday morning. I woke up to find 30 people in my pool, music blasting from portable speakers. Karen was there in a lounge chair sipping a margarita and directing traffic like she owned the place. I walked out in my bathrobe and told everyone they had 5 minutes to leave or I'd call the sheriff. Karen stood up and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You can't kick us out of a public pool." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 while she ranted about community rights and shared spaces. When everyone finally left, I did 2 things: installed a heavy-duty lock on the gate and called my lawyer. 3 days later, I was making stalls when the sheriff's cars pulled up. Deputy Rodriguez, who I'd known for years, looked embarrassed. "Jake, we got a call about you restricting access to public amenities." I showed him my property deed, the survey markers, and the security footage of people trespassing. He shook his head and walked over to where Karen was standing. "Ma'am," he said in his official voice, "this is clearly private property. Filing a false report is a crime." Karen's voice went shrill. "It's not false. That pool serves our community." Rodriguez just handed her a warning and told her to stop wasting police time. You'd think that would end it, but Karen doubled down. 2 weeks later, I was served with a lawsuit. The Willowbrook HOA was suing me for public asset mismanagement and deliberate restriction of established community resources. The lawsuit demanded I provide 247 access to the pool and pay $50,000 in community damages. I called my lawyer, Tom Bradley, who took one look at the papers and started laughing. "Jake, they just handed you a golden ticket. Countersue for trespassing, harassment, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress." The discovery phase was where things got beautiful. Tom subpoenaed all the HOA's emails and records. What we found was pure gold. Email after email showed Karen knew the pool was on private property. She told other board members to keep quiet, writing things like, once we establish usage patterns, legal ownership becomes irrelevant. Even better, she'd used HOA funds to print those fake access signs and had paid a contractor to cut my fence. She'd also offered board members free pool parties at my pool in exchange for their support. One email actually said, Jake Thompson thinks he can keep our amenities to himself. We'll see about that. The other board members started jumping ship fast. 3 resigned rather than be part of the lawsuit. Others came forward with stories about Karen's other schemes, like trying to find people for the wrong shade of beige mailboxes or measuring grass with a ruler. Local news picked up the story. The headline, HOA president claims private ranch pool as community property, went viral. People started showing up at HOA meetings just to watch the drama. Karen tried to ban non-residents, but since she claimed my private property was public, reporters asked why she could restrict access to actual public meetings. The trial was scheduled for a Monday morning in October. Karen showed up in a power suit, flanked by the cheapest lawyer the HOA could afford after spending most of their legal fund on her previous schemes. I sat with Tom and his team of 3 associates who'd taken the case partly because it was so outrageous. Karen took the stand first, watching her try to explain how a pool built in 1962 on private ranch land was somehow community property was like watching someone try to convince a jury that the sky was green. Her lawyer kept objecting to Tom's questions, but the judge overruled almost everyone. The killing blow came when Tom presented the emails. He read them aloud in court, including one where Karen bragged to her sister about putting that hermit rancher in his place and showing him who really runs things around here. The judge's face got stonier with each piece of evidence. When it was my turn to testify, I kept it simple. I showed photos of my grandfather building the pool, property records going back 60 years, and video footage of Karen personally trespassing while I'd asked her to leave. I explained how I'd had to hire security, install new fencing, and deal with constant harassment. Tom brought in a property law expert who testified that Karen's claims had absolutely no basis in law or logic. A real estate appraiser testified that the trespassing and false claims had damaged my property value and my ability to sell if I ever wanted to. The security company I'd hired submitted bills showing I'd spent $30,000 protecting my property from the HOA's invasion. Karen's lawyer tried to argue about community expectations and good neighbor policies, but the judge wasn't having it. During closing arguments, Tom laid out exactly how the HOA led by Karen had deliberately violated property laws, used association funds illegally, and created a hostile environment for me. The judge deliberated for exactly 47 minutes. When he came back, his words were music to my ears. I find in favor of the plaintiff, Jake Thompson, on all counts. The actions of the Willowbrook HOA, specifically those directed by President Karen Mitchell, constitute gross violation of property rights, harassment, and malicious conduct. He continued while Karen's face went from red to white to green. I award compensatory damages of $500,000 for security costs, property damage, and lost property value. I further award punitive damages of $2 million to discourage similar behavior by HOA boards who believe they are above the law. The gavel came down with a bang that echoed through the courtroom to $50 million. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Then came the final blow. The judge looked directly at her and said, I also recommend that Mrs. Mitchell be removed from her position immediately and barred from serving on any HOA board in this state. Karen let out a sound somewhere between a gasp and a shriek. You can't do that, she yelled, jumping to her feet. I'm the president. These people need me. The judge's response was calm but firm. Sit down, Mrs. Mitchell, or I'll add contempt charges to your problems. She collapsed back in her chair as the reality hit her. The HOA would have to pay $2.5 million. Her reputation was destroyed. The local news cameras were rolling, and according to the HOA bylaws Tom had cleverly submitted as evidence, board members who incurred legal costs through willful misconduct could be held personally Liable Corinne's face went completely white when Tom mentioned that last part. To the reporters outside, she pushed through the crowd trying to get to her car, but everyone had questions. How could you think a private pool was community property? Will you resign? Are you personally liable for any of the judgment? The last thing I heard as she drove away was her screaming into her phone, probably at whatever poor soul was left on the HOA board. The judge had spoken to $0.5 million, and Corinne Mitchell's reign of terror was officially